Have you ever had that one object that you superstitiously thought brought you good luck and good fortune? If you did, then it was probably just a phase that you got over eventually. It was certainly not some device that got you into contact with a criminal organization that you would be forced to work with until your last days. Too specific? Well, this is exactly what happens in Autumn's Treasures, the Jade coin. Now, no more dawdling, let's take a closer look at this drama-ridden yet delightful mess. Milton Clarfell, owner of a pretty successful antique store, has passed away, and his granddaughter, Autumn, is completely distraught. You see, they had a truly special bond, which is the reason that she is given his antique store as inheritance. Conflicted about whether she wants this or not, Autumn decides to at least pay the store a visit for old time's sake. Looking around, she finds an old journal with only one entry left in it that tells her to look for the missing pages for instructions on finding the jade coin. The store has plenty of nooks and crannies where a few journal pages are found, such as the safe and the skull artifact. As a small preface, I will be going over the journal entries at the end of each segment to not have to constantly break up the flow, and because looking at a wall of text while I explain everything is boring, I'm going to make some mock-ups that should hopefully help you understand things just a bit better. Because who doesn't love show don't tell? Alright. So, Autumn's grandfather and this jade coin go way back. He's even been in possession of it since she was a baby, but had to be secretive about it to protect his family. The missing pages of the journal are hidden within the artifacts he was selling, which is too bad because they've all been auctioned off. This means that Autumn has to journey around the world to retrieve them and uncover Grandpa's mystery. Thankfully, the journal has pages with very detailed images of the exact places she needs to go to, along with an address. Autumn is pointed to Cyril's heritage barn, where Cyril Karkis, the place's very kind owner, helps her find the artifacts, and nope, he locks her out in the barn's shed. I don't really know what he was trying to do with this, because that's the shed where the auctioned items are. You know, the one in the journal. I guess he was expecting Autumn to leave at some point, but how could she? There are fences with barbed wire surrounding the yard. Well, what matters is that the shed is chock full of artifacts, and by extension journal pages. Speaking of, just what was Gramps up to? Well, nothing good. He was forced to work for a criminal organization we'll later come to know as the Syndicate for the safety of himself and his family. Cyril was one of his peers, and to say they were not fond of each other would be an understatement. I guess that at least explains Cyril's motives. Anyway, time to head out. The next destination is Crazy Joe's gift shop. I'm sure someone with that name is a wonderful person. This Crazy Joe character seems extremely shady. Better stay on his good side. I mean, he literally has a journal scrap in his hat. That's no good. There's nothing much to say really, just more antique hunting. There is a dock with the canoe that has the Syndicate symbol on it, though, which makes Crazy Joe look even more suspicious. The alligator near the dock is guarding a small box, which contains another box, which contains another box, which contains a scrap. The devs must have had fun with that one. It is that time again to expand on the Gramps lore. Before he owned the Jade coin, it actually belonged to the Syndicate, which is apparently really old considering its symbol appears on artifacts that date way back. And it has a global reach, meaning that you are never really that far away from a Syndicate member. Oh look, I told you so. The journal points Autumn to some remote gift shop in Guatemala, and the place is flooded with coyotes that have stolen parts of the auctioned items. This guy here seems to be controlling them with his remote. I didn't know they managed to invent mind control. I must have missed the memo. Because Autumn is against animal cruelty, she decides to bonk him on the head and disable his remote. After subduing each coyote, she returns the artifacts to the box in the gift shop and retrieves more journal scraps. There's also a giant King Leonidas statue that we're supposed to believe Gramps somehow owned. Just when you thought things were going great, the guy with the mind control remote wakes up and locks Autumn inside, while the other guy with the plain shirt and baseball cap, who is also here, does nothing. I question why a gift shop door has such a complicated lock. But that's just classic video game logic. With her freedom secured, Autumn can move to the next place. Not before we catch up with Grandad, though. The Jade coin is said to bring luck and wealth upon anyone who owns it. Yep, we've officially gone there. It took Gramps a few years, but he managed to swipe it from the Syndicate, and its power kept him safe from their grasp. About a month after he lost said coin, he fell ill and lost his antique store, and, well, you know what happens next. Autumn arrives in Egypt and is told that some dude named Anher can drive her to the next location. After thinking she saw Cyril down the road, she gets dropped off in the middle of nowhere and Anher just straight up bails. I swear, this girl can't catch a break. Everyone has it out for her. You've got to feel at least a little bad. She acts like this is the worst thing imaginable. But this is the exact place that was in the journal. So Anher at least kept up his end of the deal. Autumn constructs a pulley to descend down a hole in the ground into the catacombs. There is a secret passage that leads into a room with plenty of artifacts, including a sarcophagus with a weighted switch that causes a box to rise at the surface. Just then, some random guy shows up and offers to take Autumn back to Giza in exchange for some money. Conveniently, that big box is basically a treasure chest. What are the chances of that? This time around, Grandpa doesn't say anything that important, other than the fact that the Syndicate is willing to protect the Jade coin with their life, which is a little too on the nose. Paris, city of love, fashion and familiar faces. No. Really. Autumn runs into some old woman in a lavender shirt that she seems to remember from somewhere. And also some guy at a cafe. This is not subtle at all. Whatever. The next address is an alleyway with yet another random guy, who is also acting against Autumn's interests. Since there's nothing here but an alley, the only place she can look is in the sewers, where the same dude is waiting for her, this time with a loaded gun. Logically, the only way to get him to move is to gas him. Don't worry, it's all in self-defense and I'm sure he's fine. He was guarding a room with lots of uncanny-looking artifacts. And to get the page from one of them she has to brew a potion. Whatever works, I guess. Alert! Major lore dump inbound. As previously speculated, the Syndicate is an organization that goes back all the way to the Sumerian civilization. You know, only one of the first civilizations on Earth. Not only that, but it's also a matriarchy, as in it's completely run by women. But given the status of the female population at the time, I fail to comprehend that. Gramps finally decided to tell us how he came to work with the Syndicate in the first place. Because he had fallen in love with a woman that manipulated him into being an affiliate. Is this officially a soap opera now? The next buyer sees Autumn flying to Sri Lanka and enlisting the help of a guide who is, say it with me now, another random guy. The fact that he was willing to charge her so little money immediately makes her suspicious that he's a member of the Syndicate. In the distance, they spot what looks like the guy from the cafe. They reach the temple, where the address pointed to. But before Autumn can do anything, she has to fix the guide's backpack and have tea with him. But he refuses to tell her what the tea contains. That is a big no-no. That is how you poison somebody. Thankfully, it seems that it only makes Autumn hallucinate the statues moving, but it's manageable. She decides to look for the guy again and manages to snap a photo of him. The guide insists that he's up to no good and demands that Autumn finds him a tranquilizer gun. And Autumn instead refuses and decides to put the guide out of commission. I'm worried she may be going down the wrong path. But I guess she was right to do so because he had a journal scrap. Finally left to her own devices, Autumn can look for more scraps. Soon enough, the effects of the tea become too strong for her, and she decided that a quick meditation should do the trick. While meditating, she feels Granddad's otherworldly presence trying to send her a message. That she should retrieve the Jade coin herself in order to escape the Syndicate. Alright, now for the part you've been waiting for. After stealing the coin from the Syndicate's headquarters, the surprisingly left Gramps alone, which is all he ever wanted, really. While he was in possession of the coin, his entire family was safe from the Syndicate, but it was all fair game once it was gone. The last buyer has an address in a warehouse in Nanchang, China. And you know it's serious when the taxi driver wants to get out of there as soon as possible. Autumn is greeted with this very unsettling image. It's not very clear, but this is indeed the guy from the cafe again. And Autumn has to lower him, remove his chains, take off his mask, get his manacles off and defuse the bomb on his lap. They really didn't want him getting away. This is Chester, an investigator from Interpol who was just trying to find some evidence. I can finally stop calling him the guy from the cafe. Together with Chester, Autumn gathers up incriminating evidence against Cyril and Marjorie. You know, the old lady from the beginning. It took the entire game for us to find out her name. While Chester is off to tell the authorities, Autumn finds more scraps where she learns that right before his passing, the Syndicate threatened Grandpa with her life and that he was hoping to lead her here. Specifically, he wrote her one last letter telling her to get the coin and... Gramps, is that really you? Grandpa's ghost has materialized to say his last goodbyes while Autumn finds the coin. With that, Autumn's adventure has come to an end, and Cyril has finally been arrested. Some months later, Autumn has decided to take over the old antique store. where she proudly displays the Jade coin, but it's not for sale. Hang on, why is there more video left? An old man approaches Autumn and hands her a letter from her grandfather that tells her to go to the Bostonian Museum to find something that could protect her from the Syndicate. Excuse me, what? First of all, who is this? And how does he know about Gramps? And why would Autumn need protection if she already has the Jade coin? Whatever. I guess there is a good reason that Grandpa wanted her to go to the Bostonian Museum specifically, though. As the nighttime curator Miss Blythe explains, he had left orders in his will to let Autumn visit the museum and have a look around whenever she pleases. Looking around the ancient Egyptian exhibition, she handles a few artifacts and eventually finds the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and a two-part letter where Gramps explains that the book and the coin are only the first pieces to stopping the Syndicate. Okay, I guess. I have no words right now. Just when she is about to leave, she is stopped by a fellow asking for Miss Blythe. Totally not important. Well, that's it. Roll credits. Oh yeah, we're going full two-parter here. Unfortunately, the next game is not called Autumn's Treasures, the Jade Coin 2, and it seems like we won't be hearing from Autumn again. I will say that the story would have been much better if the prologue hadn't existed, as it is literally pointless. Its only purpose was to build up a sequel that never happened. Which is a darn shame because this story had so many places to go. Not to mention that the absence of said sequel retroactively makes the prologue even worse. But for what it's worth, it's decently well-rounded, although I can't say that I am a fan of the way it is told. The journal entries can get boring and repetitive really quickly, and they frequently disrupt the gameplay for what are essentially mini lore dumps, but I digress. Hopefully you too will one day find your own MacGuffin to help you stop the Girl Boss Association that has been tormenting your late grandfather for the better part of his life. Too specific. I'm just playin'. Bye.